All right, what's up, guys? Running a little behind today. I had to go to the gym and trying to get some food, but yeah, let's go ahead and get started here. So, for those of you that are joining for the first time, basically members are able to jump on the call and get their questions answered, and then if you're watching from YouTube and you want to have your questions answered by me. I do these once a month for the members in Bulldog Mindset membership. You can join the Bulldog Mindset membership, and you can jump on the stream to ask your question. So let's go ahead and get started here with I've got Adam, Jonathan, Yutsov, Arthur, Jack, Katan, Mark, and then Andrew. So all right, go ahead, Adam.
Hey, John, I have a question. My question is, how do you become a good friend? I've had people, in the past terminate me and they never tell me why. It's kind of like similar how employers sometimes terminate you and they'll give you a reason. What's your suggestion? Like, what are the reasons you terminate people so that I can become a better friend?
Yeah, that's a good question. So um, I would say what it really comes down to is, I mean, it's going to sound transactional, but I mean, successful people choose to have people around them that are beneficial to them. So, what benefit are you providing? Someone if you're being a friend to them, right? So now there's a lot of different ways that you might benefit someone, right? So one way is just being someone that they can talk to and that you're providing support to, right? So you're there for them. You're able to hear what's going on in their life and give them feedback on that. That's valuable, right? Listen, right? To listen to someone, right? That's probably one of the best things that would make you a good friend. Another thing though is just in terms of what are they doing in their life, right? So sometimes it's not a matter of anything that you're doing, but it's just a matter of alignment, right? So I'm not going to really have people in my life. I don't have very many people that I would consider to be close friends because I'm doing a lot of things and I'm busy. And if people is as nice as they are, if they're not in alignment with that, then I'm not going to spend my time with that person, right? And it has nothing to do with them as a person, but has everything to do with where I'm going to spend my time. So what benefit are you bringing people in terms of of what are you doing that aligns with what they're doing, right? Ultimately though, if you want the real best guide on this, Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is probably the best book on that. And again, one of the big things that he says in that is about listening to people, being a good listener. But he talks about a lot of other things that that might be some pitfalls that you run into, right? I mean, obviously things like you should avoid arguments, right? Like you avoid earthquakes and rattlesnakes, right? You should understand that the most important thing to a person is their own name, right? And that never criticize or condemn. Be lavish in your praise, right? Hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise, meaning that give people sincere compliments, okay, and not generic compliments. What else? What do I say from there? Also, one of the most important things for a person is to the feeling of being important. When you make people feel important, you make them feel listened to. They're going to like you, right? That's really key to that. And thinking about just the idea that most people are egocentric. We all value ourselves highly, right? So if you understand that about people and make them feel good about themselves, then you're going to make a lot more friends. One thing about that too is that's why people really don't like people who brag, right? It's like, especially the more successful you are in life, the more that you should really be lifting other people up. People know how successful you are and what you've done. Now, there's times to market yourself and advertise. You're selling something. Whatever you're going to a job interview. Obviously, you want to brag about your accomplishments and things like that. But to friends, to other people, it doesn't matter if you're the most amazing person in the world. You want to highlight their accomplishments and their achievements and make them feel good, because no one wants to be around someone who it feels like all they do is talk about themselves, and they're always talking about what they're doing and what their accomplishments are, and making it about them, right? Instead, you turn that around and you start, imagine, like if you were, I don't know, Elon Musk, right? Okay, super, super successful. And let's imagine if you met Elon Musk, right? And then you had so many questions for him, like you're like, starstruck. But then he was like, "Hey, Adam, man, like I heard you took a trip to Colombia. To tell me about that, dude. How was that? That's awesome. I've never been to Colombia. I'd love to go to Colombia, right? It's like you'd be like, damn, this guy's awesome, right? Like you'd be like, man, I liked Elon Musk before, but now this guy is just he's so why? Because he's talking about you, right? Even though so those are kind of some things to think about. Is how would you perceive? Sometimes what I think about is like, if I met someone who was a celebrity or famous, and how would they talk to me that would impress me to make me like them more? And so if that's the case, then that's how you should respond to other people, right? So does that help?
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, but sometimes you can't use wealth. So what you're saying is you cannot look at the wealth of the person because, like we said, sorry, wealth is, we are hypergamous as well. I mean, men
Mhm.
are also hypergamous. Is that correct? Can we say that?
I mean, in a way, I mean, you could say that. I mean, unfortunately, I think actually a lot of guys have the problem where they don't leave behind friends that they need to leave behind because they're not at that level. If someone's not at your level and they're bringing you down, you actually need to be more hypergamous, right? In your, I think a lot of people get stuck with their high school friends and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, it's great. And that's why I have friends and I have acquaintances, and I have a lot of acquaintances, right? But I just don't hang around those people if they're not a net benefit to my life. It's nothing against them, but yeah. So there is a degree of that too, right? So if you have, for example, let's say that you have a friend and he's doing a lot with his life and you're not doing anything with your life, you can't expect to have that friend for very much longer, right? Because if he's successful and he's looking to improve himself and become successful, then he's going to be around other people, want to be around other people who are doing the same. And you should also have that same attitude in life as well.
Okay, okay. So, how do you find good friends, and how many good friends should we get? Because I have too many. It's like dating, basically. If you have too many, it's like having a harem of, and that, it's like dating. Really weird.
I mean, I'm of the opinion, well, first of all, uh, this is a lot of people aren't going to quite get this, but you don't need friends. All right. Now, I know it sounds obviously you want human companionship and you should have friendships and relationships with people. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying though is that you don't need friends. And see, a lot of people today complain about being lonely, and their core problem is that they need to become friends with themselves. They need to be comfortable with themselves. They need to be comfortable being alone first. Because here's the thing, and we talked about this a little bit, I think, before in a different context, but if you are not comfortable with yourself and you cannot be alone by yourself, then and you're lonely, then when you do encounter other people, you're going to be needy and you won't be able to help it. But see, when you are like, man, I don't need anyone. I'm cool. Like I'll sit and read a book. I'll do this. I'll work on myself. I'll go to the gym. I'll start making a YouTube video or writing a book or whatever it is, right? When you're like that, it's like, cool, I got time. It's cool to have time by myself, right? When you're like that, I'm going to go for a hike. I'm going to go for a walk, right? I'm just going to sit and think and philosophize, right? Whatever, when you're like that and you're like, this is cool. Like, I don't need someone. I'm not lonely. Then when you're around people, like you overflow from an abundance and people want to be around you because you're not taking. You're not needy. You're overflowing. You're like, you've got so much stuff to share and to give as opposed to take. Right. So that's kind of the premise. So you got to start off with, I don't need friends. Now from that, how many friends should you have, and how, it depends on the phase of your life that you're in, right? If you're single, okay, then you should probably have one or two really good friends and one friend group, right? Maybe two friend groups, not more than that, because you're going to be wasting your fucking time. You don't need to be going out and partying and wasting your time and on all of this crap, because you got too much shit you need to be doing, being on your purpose in life. Okay. So too many friends can distract that and can waste your time. If you're in a relationship, a serious relationship, the number of good friends you should have is probably one. That's probably all you have time for. And you probably really don't have time for a friend group. You might have time for a friend group occasionally, but it's not the same, right? A lot of people, they try to live their couple life like single people. And that's a recipe for disaster, right? If you're going to get in a committed relationship with someone, that's your best friend. And that should be the person you're hanging out with 90% of the time. Okay. Because otherwise, just date casually. It's totally fine. But if you're getting in a committed relationship with someone, then that becomes, because it doesn't work any other way. It's silly. You have couples friends is what you end up having at that point. So it really depends on your stage of life. But I find that a lot of people have too many friends and too many friendships and trying to maintain all those things, and it distracts them from their purpose in life, right? If you can't call someone a really, really good friend, then you probably don't really need to hang around them very often, right? And you really aren't going to have very many really, really good friends, because you're not going to have time for it. So that's kind of my take on it.
So to summarize, always provide more value than what you take, and the value does not have to be monetary. It's just being a companion, someone who can support them when things go down. That's how you can provide value, because friendships is a mutually beneficial um, transactional kind of relationship, and that's something we just have to accept as as friendship. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say that's a good. So yeah.
Okay,
All right, thanks,
perfect. I'm
Adam, for
done.
your question. Yeah. All right, Jonathan, what's up, man?
Hey, I'll make this a quick one for you.
Mm.
So I was watching your live stream or the masterclass you did 2 years ago, February of 21, about passive income. It was like a 2 hour big live stream. And you were talking about buying businesses. And that was something that was I was very closed minded to buying businesses, because I'm like, okay, if someone's selling their business, okay, why are they selling? It's kind of like a red flag to me if it's really successful. So my question is, okay, when, you talked about flippa.com. So when you're looking at like Flippa, any idiot can post a business, I'm sure, on Flippa. So like,
Right.
how do you vet like a business you're going to buy? Like, I don't know, red flags or any green flags you kind of look for when you're vetting, let's say like a flippa.com.
Okay, so let's start with the first thing, which is that because this is, I think, is a good thing to address, is a lot of people are like, well, if someone's selling a business, I don't want to buy it, because why would you sell a business if it's making you money? It doesn't make any sense, right? Well, it comes down to taxes, is what it really comes down to, right? So let's say that, so the average kind of business, and we're not talking about SaaS business and whatnot, but we're talking about the average kind of business, has a 2 to 3x multiplier on the gross profits, right? So on, or you could say benefits accrued to owner, right? Or EBITDA, however you want to phrase it. But essentially the amount of money that you make as profit that you as an owner could utilize. Okay. So let's say that you have a business that does, I don't know, $200,000 a year profit, right? So you might say, well, why the hell would you sell it for $400,000 or $500,000 or $600,000? It doesn't make any sense. If you're getting $200,000 a year profit, just sit on it for 2 or 3 years, and you have gotten the same amount as you would sell it. Why try to get an extra 3 or 400,000 now when you're just going to get it in 2 years anyway, right? That's kind of the right. It comes down to taxes. So if you have a business that's making, let's say, $200,000 a year profit, okay, in the US, your taxes on that is going to be, and 200,000 maybe is a smaller number, but as it goes up there, the taxes get closer. But let's say it's 40% taxes, 30 to 40% taxes you're going to pay on that. Okay. Now, the thing is, if you take 30 to 40% taxes, right? How long will it take you now to get the 500? Let's say you sell the business for $500,000, right? It's going to take you twice as long, approximately, a little bit less than that, right? Now, when you sell a business, what you get is capital gains tax, right? Which is 15% or 20%, depending on, right? So that's a much smaller. So you're paying half that. We could say you're paying half the taxes on that. And so you're going to get, so really what it looks like is, if it's a business that you would have gotten that profit in the next, let's say, 3 years. What it really looks like when you sell it is you're gaining the amount of cash that you would have gotten in the next 5 to 6 years. Now that's where it starts to make sense, and that's why people sell businesses. There's other reasons why people sell businesses as well, but that's a lot of the big reasons. So now vetting a business, any idiot can post something on Flippa, and the lower the price it is, the more likely it's some idiot that did it. There are some instances too where low price things, there's a lot of people in third world countries that figure out how to build a niche site, put together all the stuff, get it making like 200, 300 bucks a month off of Amazon ad revenue, and then they'll sell it on Flippa for 10 grand, and they can just rinse and repeat that process. Is that a bad deal? Not necessarily. I mean, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to put a lot of work into that. And there's definitely some shady people that will, kind of fake the revenue and stuff. What you got to do is you got to look at everything carefully, right? So if you're looking at a small business like that, you just got to kind of do the vetting yourself. Go visit the website, go understand exactly how they make money, look at their Amazon ad statements, look at their Google Analytics, look at their domain registrations, all of that stuff. Just do your due diligence to make sure, does this make sense, right? Do you understand how they're getting traffic? Do you understand how they're selling and how they're making money? And are you seeing that money hit their account, right? So, and how long has that been happening, right? So, because are they, you want to make sure there's nothing that you're missing here. Like if there's a whole bunch of traffic, they're like, where is this traffic coming from? Well, maybe they're running some ads to that right now, and they're not reporting that, and they're doing that just to pump it up to sell the company, right? Okay, so you want to investigate that, right? You can check that out with Google Analytics because you can see the source of where the traffic comes from, if it's organic or not, right? You want to see where is it, how are they making the money? If they have 100 visitors a day on their website, but then they're showing they're making $50 a day on Amazon affiliate program, that doesn't make sense. Not that many people are buying off of it. It doesn't make sense. You got to figure that out and understand that stuff. Now, at a bigger level business, if you're buying a business that's like, that you're buying for $1 million or something like that, that's where you're going to be looking at their records, and you're going to hire an auditor to audit their, a CPA can usually do this. There's certain CPAs that specialize in this, where you're going to have them audit the business from top to bottom and look at their books and the accounting and stuff like that. And if you understand it yourself, you can do some level of that. If you, that book I talked about, I think I talked about the book. It's called Build or Buy Then Build.
Buy Then Build. Oh,
yeah.
write that down.
He goes through the whole process there and talks about how to do the due diligence on a business. But there is a lot of steps to that, and you do need to do the due diligence. But does that make sense?
Because I was just always under the impression that when someone's selling their business, they're like, okay, here you go. Here's my ex-girlfriend who's got serious drug problems, alcohol problems, have fun dating her buddy. I didn't get to work out with her. So that's what I always assume with buying a business. So that's really educational for sure. All right. Yeah. And then I said, buy then build book.
And buying a business, it's so crazy too, some of the math on this, because in that presentation, I think I was talking about using the SBA loan, and where you could really like essentially get 100% return on your money in the first year of buying a business, because you can put 10% down on the business. And so you could buy, a $5 million business for like $100,000, a couple $100,000. Like it's insane. Right. But the other kind of crazy math on this is that if you buy a business and seller finance it, have the seller finance it, you can literally take the profits from the business in order to pay for buying the business itself, which is just crazy. But again, the seller would still choose it. You might say, well, why would he do that? That's silly. He could just take the profits himself and own the business. If you're just going to pay him out all the profits in order to acquire it, aren't you getting it for free? You kind of are, but he's getting a tax benefit because he's paying capital gains tax on that over a few years time period. So a lot of times sellers would be willing to do that as well. So it's a really weird thing when you look at the math of it. It's almost like you can literally buy a business and pay nothing for it at all, and take all the money of the profit from that business and use that to acquire the business. So there's some really cool stuff that you can do with that.
Interesting. I'll keep doing my research. All right, I don't want to keep you anymore. So thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Utsov.
Hey, John. Just I'm going to share my screens.
Sure.
Can you see?
Hold on, let me put it on. No, I don't see. Yeah, I don't see your screen.
I'll try again.
And just to update you guys, I've got Jack, Mark, Andrew, Katan, Robert, and Ulrich.
Yeah, can you see?
Still no. Oh wait, hold on. I see it now. Okay, here we go.
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right.
So a question, I think I have two questions about fitness.
Okay.
First of all, really thank you to like bring the awareness around like Jay Vincent. Like I did a lot of research and asked some of my friends in the fitness space about him, as well as
Yeah.
like it's whatever he's teaching is actually also supported by Dr. Andrew Huberman, who does like it's bringing really good value for free.
Yep.
Yeah, like the same thing about Hinneman's size principle. And but there's one thing I was actually confused about when I watched Huberman's podcast yesterday.
Yeah.
So he says the same thing that for like optimizing like muscle size and muscle growth, like intensity is the way to go.
Mhm.
But he says that for new people, people who haven't trained before in their life or like complete beginners, he says like for what the research shows is that 10% of the workout is only recommended to be failure. And he says, and recommends doing the rest of the workout near failure. And he says the reason for that is like if you can, with your own mind, right? Contract your muscles really hard, then that's a good indicator that you can actually grow them effectively. But if you're not able to do that, he says, recommends like a volume is actually something you can do to develop a mind muscle connection. Because like with training to failure, it like fatigues the central nervous system so much that like it actually depletes the connection. So then my question was like, that made me think it's like then should we like for new people does it even make sense to like train to failure initially? Does it make sense to actually do volume, and then once you develop that mind muscle connection, you do to failure? And
Okay. Okay, so let's kind of break this down from, again, with all this stuff, and this is important for all of you guys. What you got to do is you got to take what Jay's saying, what Huberman is saying, what people who disagree with those guys are saying, and saying that you need to do volume and you need to do, 7 RPE and stuff like that. Okay. And you got to realize that all of these guys are correct, right? Like, but what is the basis of this, right? Because what causes your muscles to grow? Is it taking weight and lifting them in the gym? Is it benching on the bench press and putting more weight on there? Is it doing that? No, it's none of those things. What it is there is a specific adaptation that is occurring within the muscle. So the muscle doesn't know whether you're lifting weights. It doesn't know how many reps you're doing. It doesn't know if you're doing, quote, high intensity or high reps or high volume or all those things, right? I mean, so you can achieve muscle growth by just about any mechanism, right? If you're doing very high volume, if you're doing very high intensity, right? Because when you do high volume, you're going to end up having some level of intensity. Like you're going to create adaptations no matter what you do, as long as you do enough of it, right? And enough could mean enough in duration. It could be enough in intensity, right? Just enough to create a stimulus, because your body will adapt to whatever you put under it. So if we think about like this whole mind muscle connection, right? That is critical. Now, if you're new to working out, if you can't, flex your, I could flex my, pretty much any muscle in my body, right? Like I can do that with a static hold, right? If you can't do that because you don't have that mind muscle connection, could you get it from doing a high amount of volume? Yes. In fact, sometimes what I do is if I'm trying to figure out if a exercise I'm doing is working a muscle properly and hitting that muscle, I will do a ton of sets. I might do like 15 sets in one day of one exercise. Why? And I might do this with my coaching clients too. Why? Because the next day you will be fucking sore, right? And where you're sore is where you worked, right?
Yeah.
Now, being sore doesn't mean you're growing muscle. I would only do that just to figure out, because now, and then guess what? When you're sore, you can really feel that mind muscle connection, right? Because if you've ever been sore, you can feel when you flex the muscle, right? Because it fucking hurts, right? So that's one way, right? You could do that with intensity too, right? When you're sitting there in the gym, if you're doing a Jay Vincent workout as a very beginner, right? And you're just like, I'm gonna contract this muscle really slow, move this bar really, really, really slowly, and I'm just gonna focus on trying to like contract the muscle. You can get to the point where you you can feel that muscle contracting, and you can as long as that's what your outcome is. Now, if you're untrained and you don't know anything about this, and someone takes a study and they say, hey, we compared people versus volume versus intensity, and it turned out that people that volume developed a better mind muscle connection, that's probably true, because they don't know what they're doing. And if you didn't know what you're doing and you just did a lot of volume, you would naturally develop a mind muscle connection. But if you do know what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve, then you did intensity, you could also develop that mind muscle connection, right? So it comes down to, in all of these things, right? Taking the science, understanding exactly how this works and what we're actually trying to achieve. Like if you understand how Jay Vincent's talking about doing the one set to failure and why that works and what true failure is, and the idea of recruiting as many muscle fibers as possible. Like if you can think about that, and if you understand that as you run through and tire out muscle fibers, that new ones are going to have to be recruited in order for you to continue doing the exercise, then there's multiple ways you can do that. And so you could train in different styles, even differently than what Jay is saying, but achieve that same effect. That's why it answers all my questions, right? Once I got this, I didn't need to ask Jay about a million questions, because when I go to the gym, like I just came back from the gym, I know that I don't need to do full reps on an exercise. I'm going to do partial reps where I'm not locking out, because I'm going to try and exhaust the muscle as much as possible in as little time as possible. So I'm going to find that little point in that exercise where it's the hardest, and I'm flexing that muscle the hardest. And I might even just move 2 inches and go back 2 inches and move 2 inches, right? Because I know what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to tire out those muscle fibers as quickly as possible, and then force myself to recruit new muscle fibers. You see what I'm saying? So the big thing is just to take all of this information and then figure out in your head. I mean, if you follow someone's program like Jay, you're going to get results, obviously, because it's going to work. But you can also just look at this and say, all right, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? How does this work? And if you understand all that stuff, you can put it together in any manner that you choose.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And you have anything similar like Jay Vincent for running? Like,
it's funny. If you read Body by Science, which is kind of where Jay gets a lot of his, the author of that, I forgot his name now, he hates running. He hates it. He thinks there's no benefit into it at all. There's no aerobic. I tend to disagree with those guys, because there is science that does prove the aerobic capacity increasing with running. I'm training for an ultra right now, obviously. But as far as resources for running, there are some similar approaches to that. I mean, just the other day, I saw an article from one of the top ultra runners, and she said, skip the long run, right? And she's like multiple ultra, female ultra runner. And she says that by doing shorter runs, but higher intensity, she can achieve a better result, which is interesting. There's some science behind it of like VO2 max. Some of the science says that all you need to do is develop your VO2 max. So if you just do high intensity hit like sprint workouts and you increase your VO2 max, you will gain endurance automatically from that and the cardiovascular improvements. So now the tricky thing about running is that there's the theoretical science behind it, and then there's what actually happens in the field, and there's sort of a mismatch between those two things. But I do have a book that I read that tries to follow the science as much as possible. Again, I'm not 100% on that, because it's just there's so much that goes on with the running. But let me see if I can find that book. I think it's called The Science of Running. Where is it? Yeah, The Science of Running by Steve Magnus. That's probably the best one. Along with that, weightlifting is a waste of time is a good one too for understanding some more of the principles on the weightlifting one that we talked about. But yeah, I mean, there's other kind of books on running theory and training that some of them go just from the coach's perspective of actually training athletes, some go down into the actual science of it. Let's see, there was one other one. Oh no, maybe that was the one I was thinking of that I read on running recently. But yeah, there's no definitive one that I could say on that. So, all right, yeah, does that help?
Yeah. Thanks so much, John.
Yeah.
Right, catch you later.
All right, Arthur.
Hi, John. How are you? Yeah, I have one small question and one bigger one.
Okay.
Can I ask both? Or
Yeah, go ahead.
the smallest one, yeah, I just want to reduce the body fat percentage. I don't want to lose muscle. Do you think is it okay to fast, or is it better just to reduce carbs, sugar, and eat like more proteins? I'm right now 6'1" feet and around 194 pounds.
And you said you're trying to lose fat, but you want to keep the muscle. But fasting is great. The most important thing is, well, there's two most important things for keeping muscle. Okay, the primary most important thing is lifting weights. It's continuing to put the force the body to respond to that stimulus. And the second most important thing is protein intake, right? And at least that's what most people. I almost think that protein intake is even more important than the lifting weights. I mean, obviously, if you stop lifting weights, you're going to lose muscle, so it's not, But if I had to prioritize, right, I would say make sure that you're getting protein. Like if you weigh 196, you said
194.
Okay, 194. At least 200 grams of protein every day.
200 grams.
That's going to be hard to do. If you do that and you're on a deficit, you're going to lose a minimal amount of muscle. Now, with that said, it is virtually impossible to lose a significant amount of weight and not lose muscle. So you probably will lose some muscle, but you want to. And again, why do I say this? Because there's not a damn bodybuilder in the world that steps on stage and doesn't lose muscle in their cut like that. And they've got every drug available to them to do it. So if they can't do it with every single drug available to them, then you can't. Like, you're going to lose some muscle. It's fine. You want to keep as much as possible. Having high protein intake and continue to lift weights is what's going to control that.
Yeah, the problem that I got rotator cuff tendinitis. I can do gym press like a lot.
Yeah, well, again, the thing is with that is start adapting. You don't need to do heavy weights. Don't do bench press. Okay, do a machine chest press machine. Okay, and you could try the machine chest press or the machine flies. Whatever works that causes the least amount of pain. Do very light weight, slow and controlled, focusing on the muscle contraction and going until complete absolute failure where you can't even move the apparatus even an inch, and then hold for 5 seconds after that. If you do that, you should reduce the amount of injury and still get the same stimulus on the muscle.
Okay, thank you. And the second, I was just curious, why would you recommend online business, for example, comparing to real estate business, like doing BRRRR method or like apartment syndication? I was doing research specifically for content websites, and with expensive websites like more than 30,000, I think it might be risky because the Google core updates happen, and there is a risk that the traffic won't recover.
Yeah. So you've got it right there, right? It's a matter of risk, right? Which is the, we could look at investments in the terms of, I talk about the three most profitable investments you can make. Number one most profitable is investing in yourself. Courses, education, seminars, coaching, right? Why? Because the return on that is infinite, right? Now obviously you can cap out on that where you start to get a diminishing returns. For example, if you haven't read 100 of the best books of humankind, that's the best possible fucking thing you can do in your life. There's nothing better than reading the best 100 books. Okay, that's going to get you better results in everything than anything else, and it's cheap. Okay, now after that 100, I've read probably 1,000, 1,500 books. The benefit is minimal. You're going to get less benefit, so it doesn't make as much sense, right? Investing in seminars, coaching, all this. So again, you can hit a point where you've maxed out. You understand sales and marketing and funnels and copywriting and all. Okay, so now you can, not to say that you ever stop investing in yourself, but the money doesn't make as much sense there. Second best investment is business. Why? because you can get 1,000% return. You can get several 1,000% return on your money. Okay. But there's a higher risk to it, right? Because what can happen if you buy an online business, Google update, it was getting its traffic from Google, and all of a sudden the traffic gets cut in half and your business gets cut in half and you paid that money for that thing, right? So there is a higher risk. But what also can happen, you're getting traffic, you're getting 30,000 page views from Google per month. Okay. You figure out some way to write better articles and to get SEO better. And all of a sudden you go up to 300,000 page views per month and you 10x that business, right? So there's a lot of opportunity there. So that's why you would choose that is business is going to give you the highest kind of return aside from investing in yourself, but it is going to have a more significant risk to that. And then real estate is, I mean, if you're investing the way that I'm talking about in real estate, there's no risk. There's virtually no risk at all. The return is still really, really good. Okay. And so that's kind of where you would choose on that. Right. And part of it too, is it's like, if you think about your long-term goal and like, okay, if you want to be financially free, you need to have so much money. My number is $3 million that you need to have. Okay. In order to get there, you can do the math and say, all right, from my job, whatever, if I invest in real estate, how long will it take me to get there? Compounding that money you can use my real estate calculator to figure that out. And if it's like, hey, 20 years, well, then your only other option is to build a business or buy a business. You see, so then you would have to plug that in and say, okay, well, I'm going to have to take this risk. It's a calculated risk, but because I need to make an extra 50 or 100K per year. And if I do that, it knocks my timeline down to 5 years or 7 years or whatever it is. So that's where that kind of fits into the equation. That's why I have coaching clients all the time. I had one guy he was this big shot lawyer. He was making $1 million a year from his law firm and he wanted to start a business. And I was like, or buy a business. And I was like, why the fuck would you do that? I was like, you don't need to do that. You're saving like $400,000 a year. You just invest that in real estate. We're done in 3 years. You never have to worry about it. After that, you want to buy a business and roll the dice, fine, but don't fucking jeopardize anything here. It doesn't make any sense, right? So it depends on where you're at.
Yeah, I was just thinking that online business, it's just in general smaller niche. And I was thinking like real estate as a business with, for example, like BRRRR method, and it will require, I think, much less work comparing to building and online business and buying and building.
So think of it this way, right? So BRRRR method, BRRR, if you guys don't know what that is, that's build, repair, build, repair, rent, refinance, rent, right? Build, repair, refinance, rent. Okay, so what that means is you find a fixer-upper property, you buy that property, okay, under market value, use a hard money loan to do that, okay? Then you fix it up, put the money into that, increase the value of that, and then you refinance, take your money out, and then you rent it out, okay? And you end up with a profit there, okay? So you buy a $200,000 house, maybe you make 30, 40 grand profit, put in your pocket, and you have a rental property. Pretty good, right?
Maybe 100,000. Like this, something.
Yeah, whatever the number is, work out. I mean, it's like, okay, but here's the thing with that. On a BRRRR, are you ever going to invest, buy a $200,000 house, and then make $500,000 back out of that? No, it's not going to happen, right? So yes, you could do the BRRRR method, okay? And every transaction that you do, you might net like 20, 30K, maybe 40K, right? On a $200,000 transaction, depending on your transaction size, okay? And so in a year, maybe you can do 4 of those and maybe you make, $100,000. Great. That's awesome. But it's capped, right? You're not going to make, in a business, you could literally 10x a business in 1 year. It's possible, or 3x a business, or have massive growth in a business. And so that's the difference. Is like, if you do the BRRRR method, that could be a good place to go if you want to invest your time and do that. But it doesn't really scale unless you were to hire a team and all that. But then you're doing then you are running a business literally at that point. It's not a BRRRR anymore, right? You're running a true real estate business, but you could do that if you want to. But what I'm saying is that's kind of the trade-off there. So you got to think about where are you going to make the most money in the fastest amount of time. And for a lot of people, the reason why I say don't do the BRRRR is because a lot of you guys are software developers making 6 figures, some of you like double or mid 6 figures. You're wasting your time fixing up a property or being a general contractor, in doing that to make an extra 100K a year. You can use your skills to make way more with your software development experience. That's why I generally am against it.
Understand. Thank you. Thanks so much. And would you just, if you wouldn't mind, I can ask later on.
Yeah. Go ahead, follow.
I was just thinking, what do you recommend to buy if I have, for example, 60K to invest to buy a small business, or or bigger? Because just in your opinion, I was curious.
Yeah. Okay. So definitely read that book. The book.
I read actually. Buy
Okay.
then build.
So one kind of principle to understand about buying business and business in general is the bigger the business, the more it costs, not the less. It's kind of right. So businesses that trade on the stock market have the highest multiple, right? They might have an earnings per share ratio of 100x or more, right? That's crazy, right? The reason for that is because the bigger the business, the more stability that it has, right? And so the smaller, the less stability. And so when you're thinking about buying small or big, that's something to factor in, is that if the smaller the business you buy, again, if you buy a website on Flippa for 10 grand, are you going to get scammed there? There's a high probability, right? It's not as, you know what I mean? But if you buy something for 100 grand or $1 million, right? That's going to, you're not going to be able to, someone who's selling $1 million business, it's going to be a lot harder to hide shit. And, it should be a lot more established at that point in time, right? So you want to look at the history, right? The best thing to do is to buy a business that's been in operation for a long time. If you've got a business that's been around for 10 years and is making 200K a year profit for the last 10 years or whatever, that's really fucking stable, right? So that's kind of the things to, the smaller the price on it, the less stability that, again, you might have a really great business, but you have more volatility the smaller it is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, John.
Mm-hmm. All right. Jack, go ahead.
Hey, John. How you doing, man?
Good.
Yeah, so I'll just tell you what I've been thinking about today, and I'll see what your thoughts on it, right? So I've been thinking today about how we should kind of generally go about life and find something that kind of fulfills us. I've been listening to Jordan Peterson's stuff a lot recently, and he says that the best thing that you can do is find some kind of good adventure, because the most positive emotion that's released is when you're working towards some kind of a good goal, which seems to make sense to me, because if you, like you said, that when you become rich, you became completely depressed because you were that bored and you were just playing video games and you had nothing to do.
Right.
So I want your opinion on what kind of adventure you can find that would be the best kind of adventure, if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah. So this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, because I've been on that quest again, right? So let me tell you what my adventure is right now. My adventure right now, I mean, I'm running this 100K race, but that'll be done in a week. But my real adventure that I'm embarking on right now is to get 100K views on a video on YouTube, right? To make super high quality. So my aspiration is 100K views on video on YouTube. My goal is to create 10 extremely high quality videos that are fully scripted out, shot professionally edited, and have multiple revisions to produce a masterpiece of work, each one of them iterating and becoming better than the last. Okay. That's my goal, right? That's what I'm working on. Right. So I'm dropping pretty much everything else. Right. I mean, obviously I'm doing these calls once a month. I am doing some coaching calls and some Instagram shorts. But aside from that, everything else, no projects, nothing else, no interviews, nothing else. It's all, I'm just focused on that one thing. And so, so one thing about that I, as I was kind of going down this path, and what took me down there was I was really starting to feel burnt out for Bulldog Mindset, depressed. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to make videos, right? Because it was just this stupid treadmill of just make content and and you can, and I mean, I'm sure you guys can probably tell, like the fire is back, right? So how did I do that, right? So I had to figure this out, and I thought staying back for a little bit, that didn't really even help, right? I had to have something to focus on. And what I found in this journey, in this process, and looking at these things, is that it doesn't even matter what your goal is, right? And this is something that Grant Cardone first told me. And, when he first said it to me, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But it didn't really click until this time, because I was talking to Grant Cardone, and he was like, John, he's like, it doesn't matter what fucking goal that anyone picks, as long as they just, these young guys, they need to just pick some fucking thing and just go just go balls to the wall into that fucking thing. And that's going to make them happy and give them, you know, and what I realized with that was that not only should we just pick one singular goal, one thing, okay? One, and then when I say one thing, I mean one thing to devote your life to for now, right? One smaller thing. Let's say 3 months, right? So something that you can accomplish in 3 months. That's about the average. But then don't plan out 2, 3, 5 years in the future either. Instead, what you're going to do is this. You're going to pick something, right? You're going to go through, I asked myself 2 questions, right? What do I want? What do I want to become? From that, I make a list. From that list, I say, let me come up with a list of goals that I could achieve that would accomplish the important things on this list for me. And then from that list of goals, pick the one that you feel like will have the most leverage and is fun, that interests you the most, that you're like, this is fucking cool. I would love to do this, right? It might not even be the best goal, right? But it's just like, this would be fun. But remember, we're only looking at about a 3-month time span here. So it's not a big deal. You can do a bunch of these things. So that gives you the freedom to pick one because you're not committing for the rest of your life. You're not going to college for 4 years, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? So you pick that one goal, okay? And then when you accomplish that goal, you put all your energy into that. Then you stand up on the precipice and you say, all right, we're from here, what do I see out? And what's the next goal that I should pick? And then you choose that one at that moment, because after you accomplish something big, you're going to change dramatically, right? A lot of and other goals are going to get accomplished along the way. And so your viewpoint's going to change and what you want is going to change. And see, the problem with making 1 year or 5 year plans is that it doesn't account for the fact that you as a human being change when you accomplish something significant and grow from that process. And you learn a lot from that process, and you learn what you do want and what you don't want. And those things shift and change. So so what you want to do is follow that process. So, you know, so Jack, the big thing is don't worry about this so much. Just pick something, like I said, ask yourself those 2 questions. What I want to become. Okay. From that list, pick a goal. And I put a lesson in the Bulldog Mindset membership on this. Okay. And then pick something that interests you that you could do for the next 3 months, and then drop everything else. And when I say drop, I mean put them into maintenance mode. It doesn't, you know, like if you're currently running or doing fitness stuff and stuff like that, you know, just no goals there. Just maintenance mode. Okay. And then go after that thing, balls to the wall, at least 4 hours a day on that one thing until you achieve that, and then pick the next one.
Yeah, that sounds good. I also remember it's like at the end of last year, I told you that I would send you a little video because I'd been thinking about how you said that you shouldn't do things out of obligation. And I had a thing to say about it. And I completely forgot about it. So that's my bad. But here's what I thought of. Right. Let's say you've got a friend, right? And this friend is really, really, really wanting to spend time with you. Really, really bad. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I can't really put my finger on it, but I'm not really wanting to spend time with this person. Or maybe it's nothing to do with them, or maybe you're just not as interested as they are.
Right.
Now, is there not a sort of kindness that comes along with saying, well, I recognize that this person wants to do this thing. So why don't I do this thing to kind of make them happy, I suppose? And I can get an enjoyment out of knowing that they're happy with it. What do you think about that?
In general, I mean, I get what you're saying here, but you have to say no a lot more in life, right? Now, you got to think about this. Like, you really have to think of what your motive, like, why are you doing this, right? Are you doing this out of obligation? Do you feel like you need to do this in order to make them happy, right? Now, see, because here's the thing. Have you ever given a gift to someone?
Yes, I've given gifts, yeah.
Okay, one that you really were excited about giving them the gift.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about,
my friend.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I gave my friend a book. Like it was like a late Christmas present, and he was just absolutely over the moon with it. He was really happy. Yeah.
Did you do that on obligation?
No, because I wanted to do it.
Did you get anything out of that?
Yeah, I feel really excited for me and him talking about it.
So you can apply the exact same thing here. This friend that you're talking about, you don't really want to hang out with him. You don't know why. You could do it just to make him happy. If you did it just to make him happy, would you feel that same feeling as giving away that book? If not, then don't do it, because then you're doing it out of obligation. You see what I'm saying? The difference is
Yeah,
slight,
yeah.
but it's
Mhm.
key. Because if you're like, because there's plenty of things that I do for my wife that
Mhm.
I wouldn't. It's not something that I necessarily want to do, but I want to
Mhm.
do it because I want to see the look on her face when I do it. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Mhm.
so, to me, to make a sacrifice, and that isn't really a sacrifice. I'm not doing it out of obligation,
Mhm.
right? I'm doing it out of the
Yeah.
joy of my heart. That's the difference,
Yes.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
I know that you're quite religious, being a
Yeah.
joyful giver, right?
Yes.
Important, right? Remember the when I forget the story where the guy the old lady put her last money, the 2 coins in the offering, okay, and it was all
Yes.
that she
Yeah.
had.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
then
remember.
the
Yeah.
Pharisee came and he put in, his a lot more money, right? And it's like, but he it wasn't anything to him. You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
wasn't. So
Yeah.
it's not the amount. It's the, you see what I'm saying? So so
Mhm.
that's how you can know whether it's an obligation or not. If it lights up your heart, if you feel excited to do this for someone, you're
Mhm.
not doing it out of obligation, even if there's nothing in it for you, right? Because
Mhm.
that's not what it's about. It's not about whether there's something in it for you per se, right? I mean, obviously you get the good
Yes.
feeling
Yeah.
of doing it, but
Mhm.
obligation means it's something that you don't want to do and you don't get any joy from doing. So
Mhm.
don't do that. Never do that, right? And you're going to have to make hard decisions and have hard conversations with people when it comes down to
Mhm.
that. But people will respect you, and they
Yeah.
will value when you actually do things, because
Mhm.
everyone knows when you're doing things out of obligation. If you go and hang out with this friend and he knows you don't really want to hang out with him, right? Or he doesn't feel
Yeah.
that excitement from you the whole time, he'll be knowing that you're just doing this out of obligation, right?
Yeah.
If you truly want to hang out with this friend and you're like, you're going to sacrifice something because you're excited about giving this gift to someone, they
Mhm.
will sense that. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So that's why it's so important to live your life by that principle, to the fullest, because then when you do give a gift, people will be
Mhm.
excited about it. They will know that you're authentic and true. And when you say no, they'll know it. But when you say yes, they'll know that you really want to be with them, or you really want to
Yeah.
do something for them. And that's very important and meaningful, because I'm sure you've been on the other side where you know that people are doing things just for you, just out of obligation. And
Yeah.
how does
Yeah.
that make you feel? You're like, I wish they wouldn't even do it at all. Right.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one last little question. Did you get my thing that I sent you a little bit about imposter syndrome? Were you able to watch it, or were you just too busy?
I was too busy to do that. I think Uzair probably went through it, because Uzair is helping me
Mhm.
process my messages, but he'll give me, a lot of times what happens if you guys send me emails is Uzair will give me a summary of them. Sometimes he'll send me the segment of them.
Mhm.
If you send me videos and stuff, it's going to be really, really hard for me with my time,
Yeah.
especially when I'm focused on my one goal. But if you send me text, and then I can scan that, or Uzair might give me a summary from that, then that's usually the best way.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. The general point was just basically, well, I remember you speaking a lot about imposter syndrome, and it was something that my friend told me about it when I was going through it myself. Is that you've got these two sides to you, and Christ does mention this when it comes to temptation. Oddly, he says your spirit is willing, right? So there's this part of you that is definitely wanting to not go and do whatever it is you want to do, but your flesh is weak. It's
Right.
like you're not God, man. You've got this part within you that really is really weak, and it wants to go and do these things. So it's not like you are John the Bulldog Sonless. You really are, but you're also the John that you used to be, and you just
Right.
choose not to be in most of the time. And this is why he sometimes maybe comes back up. I mean, I discovered this myself because I got rid of my PlayStation and gave it to my granny a few weeks ago, and it was because over Christmas and over this past month, I've just been binging Skyrim, like really,
Yeah.
really binging it. And I used to do that a lot. My mom would get frustrated with it, and I'm going, "Hold on, I thought I got rid of this guy. He's
Yeah.
back."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. He's always there waiting. He's always there
Mhm.
waiting, because I mean, it's the same thing with me. It's like, I can go back to all of my addictions,
Mhm.
like at any moment. Like like, that's why I have to be, I have to be on watch, constantly on
Yeah.
watch, making sure. And that's why it's also important for you guys to always do hard shit, in your life. Always have some hardship, because that's what keeps you strong and tough. Is that because if you let your defenses down, you will, you are going to fight this battle all the time. Now you can build habits and systems which keep you on track, right? But we're all capable of falling back to our lowest at any time, and that's humbling. So
yeah, it really is. Yeah, there's this thought that hell is an endless pit, and it's like, well, there's always, it doesn't matter how good or how bad it is, there's always something that someone like you could do to make it way worse. It's like, and that's a terrible idea, And just one last little quick thing that's on the same lines. When you come to speaking about delusions of grandeur, right, and saying I'm this amazing person, and then forcing yourself to live up to it. Well, I've come up with a little bit of a trick with it. So a while ago, I was friends with this girl a while ago, and she was speaking about approach anxiety that she had. I'm going, well, oh crap, I have approach anxiety too. How on earth am I going to deal with this? And how I dealt with it was I took me out of it entirely. Right. Instead of phrasing it as, here's the advice, and this is what I do when I'm in this situation, I say, this is what we should do in this situation. Because it takes all the focus off of you. So it means you don't need to be this character that is way, way, way greater than what you are. And it can, at least from my experience, really protect against imposter syndrome.
Here, I'll give you one level above that, which is this. This is a little trick that you can do. Okay. I use this with a lot of my coaching clients. I use this with myself when I was first coaching, right? I had a coaching client of mine. He was afraid to get on a roller coaster. All right. Yeah. So I said, all right, you know anyone who's also afraid to get on a roller coaster? He's like, yeah, my little nephew, she's afraid to get on a roller coaster. I said, all right, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go take her to the amusement park. Okay. And you're going to tell her, you're going to help her get on the roller coaster, right? She might be afraid of it, but you're going to go with her, and you're going to hold her hand, and you're going to make her feel okay. Now, you know what happened when he did that? He didn't think about his fear at all of being on a roller coaster. He forgot that he was afraid of being on a roller coaster, right? So when you step up, so for example, let's say the approach anxiety. If you talk to that girl and you're like, hey, look, let me show you how you overcome approach anxiety. I'm going to go talk to this person over here. This is what you do. And you just go up and you just talk to this person now, right? And you just start a conversation. And then in the middle of the conversation, you're like, whatever. You do something stupid, right? She's like, damn, that's right. But what just happened? You just leveled up because you had to now become the teacher. It forced you to step up. You see what I'm saying? So you can, anytime that you want to overcome something, teach it to someone else. It will force you to step up. You're afraid to get on the stage and give a talk. Go tell someone how to do it and show them how to do it. Right.
Yeah. I've been doing that.
And then you will do it. Right. That's it's a little hack. So
yeah. I like that. Yeah. I'll mention that to my friend. Me and him talk about this stuff all the time. Yeah.
All right, Jack.
That's all for me, man.
All right, Jack. Good talking to you. All right. I got Mark, Andrew, Catan, Robert, Alarich, Drew, and then Raphael. All right, Mark, what's up?
Hi. So I just went through the first week of the coding boot camp, and I was going to ask about whether I should just focus on that or try and do like other things you recommend, like starting a business and shit like that. But I feel like the last question kind of answered my question. So
yeah, definitely focus on that. Get that thing. Do the best fucking job that you can to become the top student. Make it in your brain that you're going to be the top student in that boot camp. By not just the top student by a mile. Okay, if that's your goal and your objective, and you figure out what do I need to do in order for that to happen, and that's all you're focused on, you're gonna get way more out of it than the money that you put into it, right? That's the thing. Focus on just that.
Okay.
All right, Mark. All right, what's up, Andrew?
Hey, John. So I'm a middle school math teacher, and I take what I'm teaching during the day, and I'm going live on YouTube about 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah.
I just want you to see look at my strategy, just see if you have any takes on it. And then I get that live video and I edit it, and then I post it as regular videos a couple of days after. And then I take the video and I put it onto the Kajabi blog in the SEO section. and I embed it into as a blog. So, and then from there, I just post it on Pinterest. Is there anything else I can do to bump up the SEO on Google? Tell Google that, oh, this is, if kids want help with math, they'll find my YouTube channel / blog.
I mean, that sounds like a pretty good strategy. How long have you been doing that?
A couple weeks.
Okay, so it's
I just
too
started.
early to tell. I would say keep doing this and let's measure this and see what happens. And then from there, you can figure out, are there other things that you can add to this potentially that would improve it? Now, what I would say, rather than trying to do a lot of other things, is that focus on improving the quality of the pieces of that, right? Because it sounds like you've got a pretty good process, right, that you've got in place. So think about every time you do this, how can I improve the quality better? Can I make the audio better? Can I make the visuals better? Right? Can I, make the edits better? Can I, add more things? Because, and the reason why I say that is because that's the thing that seems to matter the most to SEO now. Because remember, we're at a day and age, right? Someone just put, isn't Chat GTP going to take us out of a job in the chat? Right? We're at a point where we don't have the algorithms that they used to be. They're all AI algorithms. You can't outsmart the algorithm anymore. It's not possible. The algorithm is smarter than you. If you think, see, this is the thing that I think a lot of people are missing here. We've seen Chat GTP, right? If that is available and that was just released, and do you really think that Google and Microsoft and whatnot are not using AI in their algorithms for content and for YouTube and for predicting and choosing the content? That AI, I mean, ChatGPT just grokked the whole internet and said, here you go, all information of humankind, here you go. I guarantee you, YouTube's algorithm AI, Pinterest AI, whatever, Google search AI, I guarantee you it groks all of the videos and all the text out there, and then it like a human brain knows this is good and this is not good, right?
Yeah.
So good is like making high quality stuff is really the way to win from here on out, right? I think it's been the way to win for the last 3 years, and we're just catching on to and I'm finally catching on to. I'm like, I see what's going on here. But that's the key is creating super high quality stuff, because it will know.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Yeah. All right, Robert.
Hey, brother. Just got back from San Diego.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I was working on some stuff. Last couple of sessions I was mentioning, I have a lot of goals actually, but I was trying to focus on only 2 things. But I've actually narrowed it down to 1 thing, because I've had a hard time just getting much done and managing my time on top of my full-time job. So the 1 thing I decided to go for the next 3 months was my primary passion and purpose, which is music, and specifically in this case, performing. So working on my performance goals, and getting auditions with some local bands here in LA. So I'm kind of just I'm kind of putting everything to the side, and just I still haven't set my the goals. That's the next step, is setting what will my goal be. I think one of the ultimate goals will be, get on stage with one of these bands in the area. Mm-hmm. So I have so maybe some of those goals can be, get an audition with so-and-so, or at least get a no, get an audition or a no, a solid answer no from somebody. So that's kind of what I'm working on at this stage. I have my next, after those 3 months, I have another 3-month goal, and then another 3-month goal after that. And even though, I've had a lot going on, so I have like a lot of things I want to work on that very, they're big, painful problems. But I think the biggest one that I would regret the most is if I didn't do was this goal I'm doing right now. So do you have any tips or advice on that?
I mean, I guess the big thing is with this goal, right? Because if I understand, your goal is to get on stage with a local band.
Yes.
Okay. So break that down into because that really is an aspiration, right? Because if you heard my aspiration goal process framework.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, I have not heard that one.
Okay, so most of what people say are goals or aspirations. I'll just do a quick version of this here. So an aspiration is something that you aspire to, but it's not in your direct control. A goal is something that's in your direct control, right? So what I like to do is take an aspiration, figure out a goal that has a 99.9% chance of achieving the aspiration, and then figure out a process that guarantees you're going to achieve the goal, which basically guarantees that you're going to get to where you want to get, right? So if we said getting on stage, right, with a band, it's an aspiration, not a goal. Why? Because you're not in direct control of it unless you actually jump on the stage, right? But that's not what you mean by that, right? So then we have to say, okay, what goal could you achieve, right, that would have a 99.9% chance of getting on stage? Now, there's a lot of ways to approach this. I'll just throw one out there, but you need to think about this some more. What if you said, if you ask 40 different bands, right, then is there probably a 99.9% chance that at least one of them will say yes if you talk to 40. I don't, again, that I'm just throwing this out there, right? Maybe it's 50. I don't even know how many local bands there are. Maybe there's not even that many, right? So that's one way of approaching it. Another way of approaching it might be, I don't know, something that you could do if you created, reached out to so many bands or whatever you have to do, you come up with an actual goal that you have a direct control of, and then come up with a process to do that. So let's say that your goal was, I need to talk to 40 bands and ask them in the next 3 months. Okay. And then let's say your process was, okay, let's make it 30 bands. Just so I need to talk to one band per day. And then there you go. Then you're guaranteed to get there. So again, I'm just throwing shit out here because I don't know, I don't have enough context, but you should think about how can I translate that aspiration to a goal and then into a process. And the goal, the only requirement for the goal is it must be in your direct control. So it's something that you absolutely have control over. So for example, my aspiration right now is to get a YouTube video with 100K views on it. Okay.
Right.
So my goal is to make 10 super high quality videos that are all scripted, that I'm hiring a professional videographer to film and edit and iterate on each one. I have a 99.9% belief that if I achieve that goal, I will achieve the aspiration. I'll get there. And my process is scripting each video, putting in the scenes, shooting the video, like that whole step. And I'm doing that and spending 4 hours a day working on that. So make sense?
Love it. So that's is that in the coaching group, the process framework video?
It is in that. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. One other quick thing. I just got the Aura ring. You use one, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So they recommend using it on the index finger. Is that going to be a big deal if I use it on another finger? Do you know much about how much it matters which finger you use it on?
I don't think it matters. I kind of did the research. I've got it on my index finger, but yeah, I don't think it matters that much.
Okay, and it's mainly for like sleep and what else? What are the benefits you found?
Well, the biggest benefit I use it for is it tells me my heart rate variability, so I can see if I'm recovered from training.
Do you use it while training?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter that much. Like I've got my Garmin and stuff for tracking that stuff. It's not as good for tracking that kind of stuff because its heart rate sensor is not going to be as good as a chest strap, but it will tell you from your sleep and your because when you look at the stats on here, what it will tell you, well, there's a couple of things I guess that are interesting to me. It'll tell you your sleep stats, obviously how much you sleep. So for example, last night I had 8 hours and 13 minutes in bed, total sleep 7 hours and 44 minutes. My sleep efficiency was 94%. I basically didn't wake up at all during the night, which is good. Which, by the way, a hack for this, for some of you guys that want to increase your sleep efficiency, it worked for me, is low dose naltrexone. I don't know if it'll work for anyone else, but I take that stuff. It's basically a medication that they give people at a higher dose to get off of opioid addiction. Okay. There's a mechanism of how it works in the brain is essentially it shuts down certain receptors, dopamine receptors, I believe it is, for a period of time. But then when it restarts them, it almost is like a reset. Then they have a much greater affinity. For some reason, it makes you dream vivid dreams and to stay asleep. It was crazy. I get super good recovery from doing that. But so it gives me the sleep score, and then on the readiness, it tells me what my heart rate variability was last night, what my resting heart rate was. So, like, for example, my resting heart rate last night was 51 beats per minute. Body temperature, which I can track the body temperature to see if I'm starting to get sick, which is cool because you can see the trend, and the respiratory rate, which the respiratory rate, I can kind of track that. To me, the biggest thing I get from the respiratory rate is how many afterburn calories I'm burning. So if I do a hard workout, if my respiratory rate is higher, then I know that I'm burning a lot of extra calories. So,
okay. How long have you been using the ring?
Probably 3 years.
Okay, so you've had a lot of time to really play with it. Okay, cool. Thanks for your help.
Yep. Okay, let me see here. Alaric.
Am I on? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just got a question regarding finding problems to solve, like potential business ideas. So I came up with this idea of gathering information from particular sectors that you think you might be interested in, and well, yeah, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And only people who are insiders, within a particular industry, let's say like medical or something, they would know like what is it that's like actually what are their pain points, right? So I was just thinking, in order to gather this information and talk to these people, I was just trying to reach out to them and say, hey, would it be possible to just have a conversation about what you do, and just tell me about your day to day or something, so that you can identify those pain points. And I started doing that. However, I just find that like sometimes people don't have like the interest, or are not invested in doing this for you. So I wanted to ask, how would you incentivize people to actually share their problems or their, day-to-day situations?
All right, so let's flip this around, right?
Sure.
Imagine someone called you up. Like, what job do you do right now?
Software developer.
Okay, so imagine someone called you up and wanted to know your pain points, because they're going to build some kind of product to solve your problems as a software developer. How interested in that would you be in giving them your time?
Well, I would be very interested. However,
okay.
if it was my problem, perhaps, right?
Oh, okay. Now you see, you're getting exactly to where I'm saying. So if they just said, just tell me about your problems as a software developer. I want to try and build something for software developers. Would you even give them the time of day?
I guess it depends, right?
So now, actually, well, let me ask you this question. What's a real big problem that you have right now in your job? Or just as a software developer? Yeah.
Well, I would say it. Yeah, when you get like that question asked like that, they put you on the spot and you blank out like completely, right?
But think of one. Think of something. You know what I mean? There's something that you're interested in that's a problem that you have.
Yeah. Sometimes I do not understand I have a hard time with C++ sometimes, right?
Okay. Okay. Let's say that someone called you up and now they started the conversation by saying, hey, I'm trying to find out, I'm trying to help software developers. I'm building a tool to help software developers specifically with C++ and understanding C++. Yeah. Could you tell me about your experience with that? And then you start talking about it, and they said, and what other things do you struggle with as a software developer? Do you see what I'm saying? So you need to open with a problem that they already have that's already bugging them.
Yeah.
because that's going to get their interest. Because see, people are going to be interested by you. They're not going to be interested in you telling them is that you're going to solve their problems, and because you don't have a solution for it. Like if you want to make them think you already have some kind of solution for something, right?
Yeah.
Or that you're working on something for something that they already know that they already have a problem with. So you have to come in with enough education to already know what one of their big problems is, and then you can ask them the questions and get more details and get other problems uncovered. But you have to give them some bait, some kind of incentive first. And it's not money. It's not. It's know a hard problem that they already have.
Okay, but let me just like put a bit more context into this. Let's think about this in a B2B type of context, right?
Right.
And let's say you do not have access directly to the decision maker or the person who would be most interested in actually solving their problems regarding something that like takes like a lot of time from them or resources, whatever it may be, right? Let's say you have to pass through like some sort of gatekeeper or like somebody involved in like the whole chain of events within a particular business, right? How would you actually incentivize that person who is not like the business owner? I mean, he's just part of the team, but he's the only person you have available to actually, start like the chain of contact.
So it depends on who you're facing. I mean, most of the time, if someone is close, like an executive assistant, they understand the problems of the executive.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you can do something and you have specific language that they know is a problem that their boss faces, and you address it like that, they're going to get you to the person, because they're going to be like, oh, this person can help you. Just like, give you a good example. Okay.
Yeah.
Uzair handles my email right now, right? For Bulldog Mindset. He knows, he responds to 90% of my emails himself and doesn't even tell me about them. Okay. Mm-hmm. He knows, and people advertise me shit all the time. They say, I'll help you with this. I'll build this, right? He knows the ones to send to me, because that's something that John's actually interested in, or John's actually struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Cause he's like a gatekeeper. You see what I'm saying? So you got to figure out the thing that is really actually relevant, and that's going to get you in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I mean,
it also helps to make friends with the gatekeeper too. If you can find their problems and help them with their problems, and you develop a friendship with the gatekeeper, and they're going to get you too. But I think the most direct approach is to figure out the problem that the gatekeeper knows that their boss has.
On that point, like befriending the gatekeeper, I mean, don't they actually get like the feeling that you're doing this, with not how would I put it, like, not for the sake of befriending them, but because you have like an ulterior motive?
It doesn't matter. People's egos are too big. I could literally tell you what I'm doing to be more charismatic, and then do it, and it will still work on you. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, you can literally do it. Like, you can literally tell someone that if you want to get someone to like you, pay them a sincere compliment. And then you can literally pay them a sincere compliment, and it will still have the exact same effect. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess like that was my fear, right? That like, I was under the impression that if I actually tried to actually get to know the person and, get some good rapport with them, that because of the way I actually introduced myself with my initial intentions, that would actually just block me for anything else, because everything would feel completely, artificial, if you know what I mean.
People still like, as long as it's not insincere flattery, right?
Yeah.
Even that sometimes works, but that's best to avoid, right? So think of it this way, right? You've been in the situation. You've been to a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, restaurants hire cute waitresses, right? Like, you know what I mean? Especially depending on which one, sports bars especially, right? And waitress flirted with you, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why she's flirting with you is because you leave a bigger tip. Did you still like being flirted with by the waitress?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Right? And you know exactly what she's
even
doing.
though, yeah,
you know it.
at
right?
the back of my mind, I do have like the idea. Yeah, I know why she's doing this, but
Right.
yeah, that's interesting. That's a good point.
Yeah.
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 All right. Yeah, that helps a lot actually. I feel like now, well, having that reasoning, I'm gonna be able to do this and with less hesitance, right? Because like maybe that's something that translates into the conversation, like that pops into the conversation, and maybe it's adding some sort of some sort of noise that just doesn't allow me to actually express myself as well as I could, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Yeah, good.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. All right, Drew, and then Raphael, and then Scott, if we have time. We'll have to try to make it quick here. Go ahead, Drew. All right. I'll come back to you, Drew. Raphael.
Okay. Hello, John. Hello, everyone.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you again. So I have a couple of questions here. So my first question is about real estate investment. And I think we had a brief conversation regarding that in the previous year. But what do you recommend? What are your thoughts about that? Because I'm willing to purchase real estate in Portugal. I'm living in Ireland. And do you recommend purchasing a real estate out of my country? Do you think that's too risky? Do you think that's obviously more difficult to manage? But what's your opinion about that? Do you think it's a good way to go? Because as far as I know, if I invest here in Ireland, I would have to pay, I don't know, I think 50% of tax, which is a lot. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's worth it. So that's why I'm asking that to you.
So real quick, guys, I just dropped a link in the chat for Raphael's book. It's really good, by the way. Golden
thank you.
Lessons. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Go check that out. So here's what my take on this. So I know that, first of all, do not invest in Ireland. Ireland is probably the worst place to invest possibly now at this point, because the laws have become so antagonistic against investors that it's just it's bad, right? I mean like you've probably looked into it, unless I'm wrong, but last time I checked, and I've got a couple of coaching clients in Ireland now, it's not the best place to try and invest for investors. So I would invest outside of the country. And the thing about it is, like, you just need to make sure that the cash flow makes sense, right? Because what we're trying to do is, you just want to acquire property that is leveraged and have it so that the income that's generated from the property can cover the expenses. As long as you can do that, it really doesn't matter as much where you invest. Now, obviously, there's some markets that are better than others, but as long as you can do that, what we're trying to do is we're gaining money off of the leverage over the long-term appreciation of the property, right? So that's the key.
Yeah, but for example, Portugal is kind of a communist country. Do you think that could be risky in that sense?
I mean, a lot of people are investing in Portugal right now. I guess there is. I mean, when you say communist, you mean more on the socialist side, right?
Yeah, more on the socialist side. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, heck, the U.S. is becoming very socialist as well. So everywhere is becoming very socialist, except for Singapore. But yeah, no, I mean, I think there is a little bit of a risk there. I mean, the thing about it, like, you got to look at also, this is something I talk about all the time. The reason why the U.S. market and Canadian markets are so good is because the risk is so low in terms of ownership risk, right? Like, it's very unlikely that you're going to have your land taken from you in the US or Canada. It could happen, but it's very unlikely. In a place like Portugal, is it more likely? Yes. Is it very likely? I don't think it's very likely. In a place like, let's say, Vietnam or Cambodia or Syria, very, very likely, right? So, Turkey, getting even more likely every year, right? So those are kind of things to take into account. But again, I see enough entrepreneurs moving to Portugal and investing in Portugal that I wouldn't be too afraid, but there always is that risk.
In your case, you invest only in the US, right?
I mean, yeah, I feel like that. I mean, that's one of the more secure markets, right? Because it's very, very unlikely that you would lose the rights to your ownership. Now, of course, you're going to get taxed and property taxes and whatnot, but that's a different matter.
Yeah. Okay. My second question is, well, we also talked briefly regarding that previously. And I'd like to ask you, what do you recommend me to, what strategy would you recommend me to find a good accountant? Because, for example, yeah, I don't have a lot of income with my side business, not more than 20K, but it's something that I should worry about.
I mean, the thing about actually, it's funny. I'm just looking for a new CPA to accountant for my, because my previous accountant just raked me over the coals with their rate increases, like charging me like $3,000 for a simple business tax return for one of my business. So I'm like, all right, I'm looking for a new one. So I mean, what I'm doing right now is it's kind of how I look for anything, is I'm going to put out queries to 5 or 6 people, get on the phone, talk to them, talk about my situation, talk about their pricing, see if they understand. And you have to have a pretty good education of tax law yourself, right? So that you can evaluate properly. So your first step is to learn as much as you can, so you will have a good grasp of it, and then you can communicate that and see what because if they should know more than you, and they should know what you're talking about. And that's how I'm vetting people. Is I'm like, all right, I talked to one lady and she didn't even know what the heck was happening with the real estate stuff. I was like, all right, I know way more than you do about this, so no, right? And then I talked to another guy the other night, and I kept on taking him to more complicated stuff I was doing, and he was with me the whole way. So that's a good, it's very hard to evaluate an expert unless you are an expert. With that, one strategy I do when I'm not an expert at something is sometimes I hire a very expensive expert to give me recommendations on other experts, right? So let's say maybe someone, or maybe you call up a really big shot accounting firm that deals with really big businesses, and you say, hey, look, I obviously can't afford you, and I don't need you, but can I pay you for an hour of your time to help me vet an account, like to tell me what to look for if you were hiring an accountant at my level? And maybe you pay that person $300 for an hour of their time, or $400 for an hour of their time, and now you've got the knowledge from someone who is an absolute expert, right? That's sometimes the way that I go about it.
Okay, great. So my next question for you is how to grow my mail list more quickly, because it's forever for with 3K of people in my mail list, and I don't really know what's the best way to grow my email list.
Let me answer this one quickly because we're out of time here.
Yeah.
But basically, I mean, and there's a more complicated answer, but the simple answer is this: is that your email list, the growth of it, comes down to 2 things: 1, traffic, and 2, conversion. Right? So if you whatever your conversion rate is now, if you get more traffic, that will grow the list, right? So you have to figure out, how am I getting traffic, right? And how can I increase that? How do you increase traffic? 2 ways: creating more content or better content, right? That's it, right? I mean, that's pretty much right. Number 2 is conversion. How do you increase conversion? You test different pages, you test different options, test different offers until you find something that works. Now, which one of those do you do? Pick which one feels like it's the lowest hanging fruit and start with there, right? So if your conversion rate is really low compared to other people, then you might be able to increase that conversion. And again, it's a conversion. Every step down the funnel is a multiplier of the previous step, right? So if you're not getting much traffic and you increase the conversion rate, it's not going to have a large effect on the amount of conversions to your email list. Okay. If you're getting a huge amount of traffic, then you increase that conversion rate just a little, it's going to greatly increase the number of conversions. So you got to think
Yeah.
about it in
So
those terms.
I think it's not the problem with conversion. I think the problem is the traffic, because I get 400 views in my blog, for example, per day. It's not too much.
Okay. I mean, that's not a bad amount. I mean, what I would like to see on a blog is a 2% conversion rate.
Yeah, I have
visitor.
that. I have that.
Okay. If you're at 2%, you're not going to get much higher than 2%. It's very hard to get to 3, 4, 5%, not even worth it. So you need increased traffic.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's what I need to figure out.
So
I have no idea.
only 2 ways to increase traffic: create more content, create better content.
Okay.
Yeah. You can do both, right? Focus on which, if you look at those, which one of those things could you do better, right? You know,
okay.
I mean, that's obviously there's more specific technical things of SEO and things like that, but that's kind of the basic. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot, John. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys, that is it for this week. I got to jump here, but as far as you guys asking for the top 100 books, this has been on my mind for a while. I'm going to put together the best 100 books and put this out for all of you guys at some point. If you want to jump on the stream next month, make sure you join the Bulldog Mindset membership. I think we dropped a link there in the chat, or you can just go to bulldogmindset.com and you can find it there. A couple other small things here. I sent out a link here if you wanted to know about that low dose naltrexone. It's called LDN. This is the website where you can see the research on this. It helps with a lot of things. I originally got it for long-term COVID symptoms of brain fog. Seemed to have cleared that up for me as well. And then this is my affiliate link for a company called Merrick. If you know Derek from More Plates, More Dates, he owns this company, and I get all of my supplementation from him. You can see it's TRT. I'd get that from him, but you can pretty much get anything that you need through this this company. You know, they're basically going to, I mean, you're going to talk to a doctor, but you know, if you're like, hey, I want to try this, they're going to help you do that. I also get semaglutide. You heard of it as Wegovy from them, but I get the pure form that I have to, dose myself from there for a fairly cheap rate. So if you're looking for that weight loss drug, that's another good alternative for that. Also, skincare stuff is really good from there. Trinotin, and copper arginine, those are the two clinically proven things that work for skin. So, all right, guys, that is it. We'll see you next week or next month.